Welcome to Cybersecurity Growth. Generally a live stream converted into a podcast, but today on Sunday, as I'm live and recording this, I've been playing around a lot with OpenAI's Codex and ChatGPT, and I've been building some software based off of several of my manual tasks as a CISO, and that's what today's all about. This will be part one of a multi-part series while I'm walking through converting my daily work tasks into a piece of software. My daily work tasks have a lot of manual pieces to them. So I've just got a ChatGPT view in front of me. I have worked in cybersecurity for the past 20 years. The past 10 years or so, I have been in chief information security officer roles at publicly traded companies, privately held companies, and before that, I was in security operations roles at Fortune 500 companies. In the last couple of years, I decided to make a change and go out and create this business, Cybersecurity Growth, where I've got an online training education platform, and I do fractional or interim CISO work for clients. So I'm still a CISO, just not at a single company. It's focused around cybersecurity leadership, and providing services to companies who need cybersecurity leadership. Just setting the scene there. Now, back to what's in ChatGPT here. A couple months ago, I said, I was thinking to myself, for the better part of the past half of a year, I have a recurring daily task. I have a couple spreadsheets, Google Sheets specifically, that I work with every day. One is basically my revenue pipeline sheet, where I'm looking for new clients to work with. One of them is also similar to a revenue pipeline sheet, but it is focused more around full-time job opportunities that exist, because I want to always keep close to the market, what's going on in the market, what needs are out there, how can I serve the needs of the market. So I have these two spreadsheets where I'm trying to pay attention to things. And let's see, I have a daily agenda that I write out every day and I review. And that daily agenda basically is my calendar from roughly 7 a.m. to roughly 6 p.m. What do I do between those hours? And some of that daily agenda is delivering specific tasks for my clients, delivering specific tasks to grow my business. So I got a couple Google Sheets that I work with. I've got a daily agenda, which is a Google Doc. I run my business similar to Scrum by creating sprint planning, and I identify objectives and things I want to deliver during a sprint. And so I do sprint planning. I don't have a tool like Jira that I use. My sprint planning, I just do it on a document. I was running them on Google Docs. I'm now running my sprint planning on a Word document. Why? Just because I want to experiment with all the different productivity tools. So I do some Google Workspace, some Microsoft 365, just so when I'm working with a client, I am comfortable in whatever environment they're in. So I do sprint planning on a Word document where I'm laying out, hey, what do I want to do for the next several weeks? What are my key focuses? I actually do sprints in about 45-day windows, a little bit longer than most people would do a sprint. And then I also have my calendar. Right now I'm using Microsoft Outlook for a calendar. These 5 things kind of run my life, run my day. If I had hired a chief of staff to work for me, I would have them helping me manage these, but I'm doing this myself. So I have a process that I run daily. And in fact, I use ChatGPT to run this process daily to help me review these documents, to plan out my day, and to update things. I got to a point, and this is what's on the screen here, where I said, what if I take this daily process that I run and turn it into a piece of software? And I thought about it right after OpenAI had dropped a new release of their tool Codex, which is now on the screen here. So I have Codex here. And I thought, well, everybody over the last year have been talking all about, for whatever reason, Claude and Claude Code. Anyone who's writing code is usually using Claude Code. People are saying how amazing this is a piece of software. So I said, great, I should try Claude Code, but hey, Codex just dropped a new release. Why don't I try this in Codex? I'm going to go back and forth between ChatGPT and Codex. But keep in mind, I haven't been a software developer for many years. I don't know modern languages. I don't know CI/CD pipelines as well as I should as a developer. I do understand them as well enough to help in a DevSecOps strategic plan. But I wanted to build a piece of software, and I said, hey, ChatGPT, can you help me with this? I opened up ChatGPT. I opened up Codex, and I started in ChatGPT, and you can see some of my prompts here. This first prompt says, could I create a vCISO daily calendar application using Codex that replaces what I'm currently doing with this manual daily agenda review. Review tasks from my sprint document, look at my calendar for tomorrow, and build out my agenda for tomorrow that includes an editable checklist along with an ICS for calendar blocking. Keep in mind, I have never used Codex before, and I've not been a developer for 20 years. That was my prompt. That's how I started all this. And it says, thought for 8 seconds. Yes, you can absolutely build this with Codex, even as a non-developer, but the smart move is to build a small, boring V1 first, instead of trying to replace your whole workflow in one shot. So this is really interesting. ChatGPT right now is acting as some form of a product owner, product manager, and giving me guidance on the best way that I could build a piece of software. Pretty neat, huh? And then it goes on to say, this is the response to my one question. Codex is designed to help build software end to end, and OpenAI's current Codex products are positioned for real engineering work, including working in a local folder or Git repo and handling longer running coding tasks. OpenAI also has a Codex app for desktop and API support for Codex workflows, plus a prompting guide specifically for using Codex models effectively. And then it gives me some links here that I can go read some more about that. And as you know, I do have the Codex app on my desktop. I was showing that just a minute ago. And then it goes on to say what you described is actually a very reasonable application. And there's 5 bullets here. Review your sprint tasks, look at tomorrow's calendar, generate a proposed daily agenda, output an editable checklist, generate a .ics file for calendar blocking. Let me explain the ICS piece if you're not familiar. If you use a common calendar app, Microsoft Outlook, Apple Calendar, something along those lines, if you create a file or a calendar file, an ICS file, and you double click it, basically whatever's in that file will import into your calendar. So what I'm asking is ChatGPT to create me my calendar for today or for tomorrow, depending on what I'm planning, based off of all the other things in these bullets up above here. And then the end result is it's basically going to block my calendar off. So my 8 hours working day blocked off with tasks from all these other documents. And it goes on to say, this is not crazy. It's a solid internal productivity app. The hard part is not the UI. The hard part is reliably pulling together tasks, priorities, constraints, and calendar data in a way that matches how you think. The app itself is very buildable. The challenge is workflow design. This is where you need discipline. My honest take, yes, build it, but do not start with the full autonomous planner. Start with Planner Assistant that drafts tomorrow's plan and lets me edit before I accept it. So again, this is ChatGPT playing product manager. And pretty cool that it's giving me this guidance like it is. And now it's suggesting for version 1, only do this. And it's giving me 4 things to do. Pull tomorrow's calendar events, to let you paste or sync your sprint tasks and carryover tasks. 3, ask for a few planning inputs such as total available work, top 3 priorities, immovable commitments, and personal tasks to include or exclude. And then the last piece here is generate a proposed agenda by time block, an editable checklist, and then generate an ICS file with suggested focus blocks. Because this is what I do on my daily work flow. So this is proposing how we'll create a tool for that. That would already replace a lot of your manual process. And ChatGPT is still providing me info here. Where I would not start is automatic prioritization with no review. I would not start with direct write access into your calendar before approval. Would not start with trying to read messy documents from 5 different places on day 1. Would not try to infer your intent from vague notes. That is how these projects become annoying instead of useful. A practical stack for someone in your position would be, there's 4 bullets. Front end, a simple web app. Back end, a lightweight Python or Node app. Note, I have written some Python code. I don't know if any of the Python code I ever used was moved into production, but I did work on some product development in Python, I don't know, maybe 2010, 2011, something like that. As far as Node is, I've never worked in Node. All right, this app is also going to use data sources, including my Google Calendar first. That is an error. I do not use Google Calendar. ChatGPT is making an assumption that I use Google Calendar. I use Microsoft Outlook with a M365 subscription, and then a simple task source. The output is a checklist saved in the app, plus a downloadable ICS. You do not need to become a serious developer to get this done. you need to become a good product owner for the app. I have been a product owner before. I've been a product manager before. So that's interesting. Codex can do a lot of coding, but you still need to define what good output looks like. OpenAI's current Codex materials emphasize that it works best when you give it a clear project folder and concrete tasks rather than a vague build my whole business system prompt. And again, links to more documents introducing us to Codex. Cool. I'm going to continue on because I want to share how I learned to help others learn as well. Here's what ChatGPT recommends. This is going to be in phases. 1, 2, 3, 4 phases I see here. Let me go back to what those are. Phase 1, fake the integrations. Do not start with a live Google Calendar sync. Remember, I don't use Google Calendar, so that's already an error that we need to fix. Start with pasted calendar events, pasted sprint events, pasted carryover tasks. That aligns with part of my daily workflow right now. I will take tons of screenshots and I paste them into ChatGPT or Claude, and then we build my daily agenda based off of screenshots that I bring in. So it's suggesting part of my daily workflow, continuing that. Pasted calendar events, screenshots, pasted sprint tasks, again, screenshots, pasted carryover tasks, and then have the app generate tomorrow's plan, checklist of things to get done, and an ICS file. This proves the core planning logic first. Okay, phase 2, connect Google Calendar. I've already said this. I don't use a Google Calendar today. Well, I do use a Google Calendar, not for business though. So that is not in play. But continuing on what it says, once the logic is good, connect calendar read access. After that, add ICS export or direct calendar insertion. If you jump straight to integrations, you will waste time debugging auth instead of getting value. Phase 3, make the checklist editable and reusable. And it says add, and there's 3 bullets to add. Check off completed tasks. So it wants to create a checklist with checkboxes. That aligns with what I do daily and in my sprint planning, in my Google Docs and in my Word documents. I add checkboxes. Instead of bullets, I add the checkboxes next to them. Google Docs does a great job with checklists because you can turn your bullet lists right into checklists that you can check off and leaves either a checkbox or crosses out the line. Microsoft Word does a pretty crappy job, in my opinion, of checkboxes. You can add a checkbox, but you can't add it as a bullet. It's a separate object. And then you double click on the checkbox and it pops up a modal text box that you then check or click a radio button, checked or unchecked. Kind of stinks in Word, but hey, Word's been around for a long time. And that's how they started doing it. Google, when they came around, I think they figured out how to do checkboxes a lot better than Microsoft. But I use them every day. I use checkboxes to remind me, what did I get done? Did I get everything I wanted to get done in the day? Which is rare. I rarely get everything done that I plan to because I usually plan more than time allows. But hey, did I get most of it done? Or did I have a slacking day? We're going to add checked off completed tasks. It's recommending we move unfinished items to the next day, right? If you think about the world of Scrum, you plan things you want to get done. And then if you don't get everything done, you have an opportunity to say, I didn't get everything done. Is the stuff that I didn't get done still important enough? And if so, should I move it to the next window? That next window could be tomorrow. It could be the next sprint. Or is it no longer important? Has it been overcome by other events? And if it's not important, then don't move it to the next day. But if it is still important, I just didn't get to it, cool. That's tomorrow's priority or the next plan, the next sprint's priority. And then the third add here is preserve notes like did not complete or defer until after the RSA conference. ChatGPT knows me really well. It's funny that it suggested defer until after RSAC. I did not go to the RSA conference this year. I had wanted to, but I had other plans that kept me away from it. All right, phase 4. Add your real planning rules. This is where the app becomes yours. Overdue pipeline, follow-up surfacing, carryover logic from your prior day, do earlier in day if strategic, deep project work before meetings, personal versus work separation. So phase 4 is putting in real rules into place, determining which things are priorities. Is client work a priority? Are overdue tasks the priority? Do I have personal things in my life that are priorities? So it's basically suggesting different types of logic rules here. Pretty cool, by the way. It's just very cool to watch this conversation progress, all starting from a prompt that I did up above saying, I'm not a developer. I want to turn my daily workflow into an app. And we're still only on the first response here. All right, so now it's saying that rules layer is the real moat, not the code. The biggest risk is expecting Codex to read your mind. It will not. It will need to be explicit. You will need to be explicit about things you like. Yes, it says, I read that wrong. You will need to be explicit about things like how to score priorities, how to determine which things are higher priority versus others, how long tasks usually take, so time boxing tasks. So if I think about this first bullet here, priority scoring, it's probably going to create some type of number system, something simple, 1, 2, or 3. Maybe 1 is most highest priority, 3 lowest priority. How long does a task take? 20 minutes, an hour, 3 days. When should deep work be scheduled? That's probably a good thing for someone depending on when they do their best deep work. I oftentimes do my best deep work late in the afternoon, sometimes earlier in the day, but usually for me, my deep work, I really get strong in my deep work later in the workday when a lot of people are starting to fade. That's when I kick in for whatever reason. What work can we defer, and what counts as must do versus nice to do? So these are some of the logic suggestions that ChatGPT is recommending. So we did phase 4, add your real planning rules, and it says that rules layer is the real moat, not the code. The biggest risk is expecting Codex to read your mind. Okay, right. We saw the priorities. Without those rules, you will get a planner that looks neat and feels wrong. And for someone who has not developed in 20 plus years, that would be me. I have not developed in 20 plus years. I would strongly steer you towards one of these routes. All right. So now it's saying here's 2 routes I can take: route or route A, and route B. So A says Codex builds it with you step by step. This is best if you want ownership and are willing to learn a bit. Or route B, use Codex to generate the app spec first. Have Codex help you produce product doc, requirements doc, screen flow, data model, planning rules, build plan. Then build the app after the spec is sharp. And it says, frankly, route B is a safer starting point for you. It reduces trash. A very realistic first milestone would be, given tomorrow's calendar events, today's unfinished tasks, and sprint priorities, generate a proposed agenda with time blocks, an editable checklist, and an ICS export. That is specific enough for Codex to tackle well. My recommendation is do this project. ChatGPT is saying we should do it. But do it as a decision support planner, not as an autonomous scheduler. That matches your real workflow better and is much more likely to become something you actually use. If you want, I can map out the exact V1 spec in the first Codex prompt sequence so you can start without needing the real developer instincts. Okay, so this is how it all began. Scrolling back to the top, a simple prompt that I fed into ChatGPT and it providing me this guidance. There's my prompt and what is recommended. And now going back to where it said, do you want me to create the spec? I decided, by the way, after reading these suggestions, route A or route B, to go route B. Have Codex generate the app spec first, and then Codex can help me produce product requirements doc, screen flow, data model, planning rules, build plan. So it's going to create a whole bunch of documentation for me long before it actually creates a single line of code. And so I said, let's go with route B. Map it out and create the first Codex prompt sequence. And it thought for 9 seconds. Fun to see here that it's actually going into its own developer documentation. It writes back, yes, route B is the right move for you. Do not start by asking Codex to build the whole app from a vague description. Start by having it help you produce a tight spec. Then use the spec to drive a small V1. That matches OpenAI's Codex guidance. Give it clear project context, explicit completion criteria, and project local instructions through files like agents.md. Codex is available through the Codex app and Codex CLI, and the CLI is designed to run locally on your project directory where it can read, change, and run code. And again, links to using Codex. When these were both brought to me, I had a time limitation. I would love to get into the code. I would love to dig into this for the next 40 plus hours. But I had a time limitation, and this has to do with the current sprint that I'm working on. Actually, I was working on a different sprint when I started this, but the current sprint has the same rules, that I have some business objectives that I need to hit before I go off on any nerdy tangents. And I'm sure we can all understand what I mean by that. Like, hey, let me go explore and experiment with a new tool or new technology. And next thing you know, the whole week is completely blown because that's all you focused on. So I have specific requirements in my sprint that I am not allowed to do any tangents outside of what was planned. And I'm sticking to that. And in fact, the only reason that I'm walking through this today right now with us is because it is Sunday. And weekends, I am allowed to do whatever I want because they are not work days. If this was Monday, I would not be doing this, because my Monday is reserved for sprint tasks. And I even specifically said in the next sprint that I will plan in a couple weeks that I may allow myself to do more experimentation. But the only reason any of this that we're looking at right now, the reason why any of it exists, and the reason why I'm even online today, is because it's Sunday. It's not business hours. I'm doing this in my spare time versus my work time. That is me, a person who very easily goes down rabbit holes and tangents, putting some very strong guidelines in to make sure that I meet my own objectives. That is why I went route B. Didn't have the time to go A, and I wanted to see if this thing could make anything usable for me. So route B, what should you build first? Should be our planning assistant, not an autonomous scheduler. Core V1 outcome. Each evening, the app should ingest tomorrow's calendar, ingest carryover tasks and sprint priorities, generate a proposed daily agenda, generate an editable checklist, generate an ICS file for proposed focus blocks, and require your review before anything is accepted. That's enough to replace most of your manual planning loop. And now it's saying the product for version 1. You currently do a manual nightly routine. So this is actually it knowing what my daily tasks are like, my daily routine is like, and it's reading it back. So now I'm sharing with you. This is my daily nightly routine. I review today's agenda and unfinished items. I review my sprint priorities. I review tomorrow's calendar constraints. I manually build tomorrow's agenda, and I manually create or imagine calendar blocks. And it is time consuming. It is repetitive. It's easy to do inconsistently, because remember from when I described this initially, this is me using 2 Google Sheets, 1 Google Doc, a Word document, and my actual calendar. I'm using Outlook as my mail and calendar tool, but I'm actually using Apple Calendar if I go a little bit deeper, because with Apple Calendar, I'm integrating my work calendar, my personal calendar, some client calendars that I have as well. All right, the V1 goal. Create a daily planning app for a vCISO fractional operator that drafts tomorrow's agenda from structured inputs and exports, a proposed time-blocked agenda, an editable checklist, and an ICS calendar file. Who's the primary user? Just me. So this is also something I took into consideration. I am the only user, which means that we do not need a multi-user architecture. We don't need user permissions. We don't need any fancy onboarding. Keep it narrow. This means I can run this tool local. I could run this tool with no authentication. I could run this tool without even having HTTPS enabled if it's a web app, since it's all local. Success criteria. A successful V1 should let you create tomorrow's plan in under 10 minutes and produce an agenda that feels at least as good as your current manual process on most days. And inputs for V1, we'll keep these simple and explicit. Required: tomorrow's existing calendar events, calendar tasks from today, sprint tasks, priorities, etc., etc. Some optional items here: personal tasks, estimated task durations, hard constraints such as client hours to work, special preferences. And now it's got some outputs here: what a proposed agenda could look like, what my editable checklist could look like, some of the fields that might be in an editable checklist, what an export of the ICS file should look like, things that I'm not going to do this sprint. And again, this is all ChatGPT producing all of this based off of my single prompt. No autonomous write back to the Google Calendar. So there's no writing back to my calendar. It's only going to create an exportable ICS file that I can double click to import manually. No mobile app, no email integration, no task syncing from multiple sources, no AI memory of the whole business, no natural language ingestion for messy docs at the beginning. So it's a pretty simple app. And I think this is an important piece to focus on. I initially wanted a pretty complex system here, and the recommendation is let's get some basics working first and then iterate on it. The rules engine, this is the heart of the app. We'll start with a small basic rule set here. Explicit calendar events are fixed constraints. Top priorities should be scheduled before lower priority tasks. Deep work tasks should prefer larger uninterrupted blocks. Meetings should not fragment the whole day if avoidable. Tasks that do not fit should remain on the checklist as unscheduled. The app must never silently drop tasks. The app should explain why each task was scheduled, deferred, or left unscheduled. That last one is big. It makes the planner trustworthy. All right, let's see. How much more do we have here? Okay, this is good. We're going to start getting to prompts. Number 9, recommended technical approach. For you, the easiest sensible build is a front-end next.js web app. Backend is a next.js server actions or a small API layer. The storage will be a SQLite or a simple JSON file for version 1. The calendar input for V1 is a manual paste or an uploaded ICS file. The calendar input version 2 is a Google Calendar read integration. Remember, keep in mind, I don't use Google Calendar for Business, so that is not something I want. ICS generation to create a server-side library. Checklist editing, a simple CRUD in-app, create, read, update, delete. This is modern enough to be useful, but small enough that Codex can scaffold it cleanly. Codex is explicitly designed to work inside an existing project structure and can operate over a code base, making file edits and following project instructions. Okay. And links to OpenAI, developers, documentation. It's suggesting what my file structure will look like. When I start the app, it's saying repo, but file structure. Here's what your file structure will look like. Here's what's going to go in the agents.md file. Agents.md should say things like build a small maintainable app. Prefer boring solutions over clever ones. Do not add features not in the spec. Keep code readable for a rusty non-developer owner. That's me. Document commands needed to run locally. When uncertain, choose the simplest working path. Do not integrate external APIs unless explicitly requested. Always update docs when architecture changes. Example starter content. So now it's actually creating the markdown, which may be in one of my first files. And the files that it's going to create are all just words to help the software creation tool understand what's needed. And now is the coolest thing here, and this is where we transition into what becomes next. It took, again, this all was my one prompt at the beginning and a second prompt where I said, yeah, choose B. Let me just revisit this. Right? I started with one prompt, and it's basically laid out this whole thing that it thinks I should do, which I just read through. And then I said, oh, yeah, let's go with plan B. That sounds good, which basically means build the app for me, and then we'll see how it goes. That's all I did. That's all I typed. Now, again, ChatGPT has memory about me because I do use it every day. And now we're at the point where it's already creating the prompts. ChatGPT is creating the prompts that I'm just going to copy and paste right into Codex. And here is the beginning of it, right? Prompt 1. I'm not going to read the whole prompt here, but I'll highlight it as I walk down. This is going to be the first prompt that I copy and paste into Codex. And it's basically saying things that I just read. It's going to give Codex the context of what's going to be built. Then it's going to do a thing. Then it says, here's prompt 2, which is to define the user flows in the wireframe level screens. And again, you see there's no code in this. It's just a prompt. So after it does prompt 1, I'm going to copy and paste prompt 2 in. And then prompt 3, define the data model. And it's just laying out basically what the data model, the database is going to look like. Prompt 4, define the scheduling logic before coding. So far, we've not coded. In all of these all of these prompts right here are specifically saying don't code anything yet. It's just creating the documentation. So it's as if the product manager is writing on paper what it is we want to create here without saying go build it yet. It's the whole idea of designing an application before you build it. Keep writing it out, keep iterating on what you're writing out so you get familiar with what you want to create before you give it off to the developers. And that's what it's doing here. It's just really interesting to watch the AI propose this. Prompt 5 is to produce the build plan. Again, more documentation. And even in that prompt, it says do not write the application code yet. It's been saying this in all the prompts. Prompt 6, ask Codex to critique the plan. So we've now had Codex build all the documentation of what the document should, or what the product should be, and now we're asking it to be its own reviewer, documentation reviewer. So it's reviewing the plan, and still not writing code yet. Prompt 7, only then scaffold the app. So once all the documents are written for what the app should do and how the app should work, and then after everything has been reviewed, we are now giving it the okay to write the code. And now it's saying how to use Codex. It's going to be very straightforward. I'm going to take these prompts and copy and paste them into Codex and sit back and drink a beer while it cooks. Okay, so that is step 1. I will just briefly bring us over into Codex. And let me see. Maybe I'll make the text a smidge larger here. So in Codex, I did exactly that. I took the prompts, copied and pasted them, and it went off and did stuff. First prompt, this is its message as it's talking to itself, working. All the things that it did. And it created the file. By the way, it created all of the document repos on my local drive. And then said, here's all the things I created. And then I took the second prompt and I copied and pasted that prompt in. And it did its thing. Here's what I did, the different documentation, and it even linked to the file that was created. Created a file here. Third prompt. Now it's creating the scheduling rules. It did that and created the files here. And again, it's fun to see the working message as it's talking to itself here, trying to figure out what to build based off of the documentation. create the build plan. That was the next prompt. Copy and pasted that. Again, still not writing any code. It's just writing documentation. And I went through these. Something to keep in mind, I know people talk about tokens, like when you run out of tokens and then have to pay more money. I'm on the $20 a month plan of ChatGPT. That gets me ChatGPT and Codex. I did not run out of any tokens while this was being built. I did not have to pay more money. Just use my monthly subscription. All right. Here's the next prompt that ChatGPT wrote. Copy and pasted that into Codex. And this was the critique stage. This was, all right, you wrote all the documentation. Now critique yourself. And it's giving itself feedback here. It's finding things. It's actually rewriting files that it didn't like after it's repeating. This is where the non-deterministic part of a large language model come into play, where it's not always going to have the same outcome. So it actually looked at its own work and decided, I don't think I want to edit this. I don't like this file at all. I'm going to rewrite the entire document. And it rewrote its own document because it didn't like it. Finally, we add the final prompt where it's going to make a piece of software here. And that ran for quite some time. And it's writing code. It's building a database in SQLite. Adding the capabilities for the ICS generator. Showing how to run the application. It's running the application itself as a test. Created it's a local IP address, opened up a port, and there we go. The application was created. Those prompts took about an hour and 20 minutes to run, by the way. And am I in the right location? Probably not. Let's see. Did I do it right? Let's see if I can run it. Running now what was created. I think it's set. Let me switch screens here real quick. Let me bring up a browser window and see if I can get it to pop up properly. All right, and now I'll share my screen. A fully functional application. Version 1, here's version 1 of my application running right now. I didn't build the UI, I'm just looking at it for the first time here. And it's showing tasks, sprints, dates, times. Looks like an edit time. Oh, it's got a little time window here. It's got a little calendar picker here. That's neat. Focus blocks, I can figure out how long I want to work for. Breaks, do I take breaks after tasks? Tomorrow's calendar events, carry over tasks from today. Neat. All right, there's another way I can run this where it builds a default set of events. Let me see if I can bring that up too. I think this will build it with some seed data. Okay, that appears to be working. Give me a second. Let me bring that browser window back up. Let me share this on the screen. Okay, here is the working app with some sample data already in it. It has 3 calendar events, 2 carryover tasks from yesterday, 3 sprint ready tasks. And it's showing me, okay, here's an item for the event, a client steering committee meeting. It's on April 27th at 10 a.m. It's going to take place on Zoom. Some notes for that meeting. I've got a team lunch event, same day at 12:15 to 1 o'clock. Client B control review later on in the afternoon. So these are all just seed items, just samples. Carryover tasks from today's calendar, pre-populated with priorities, high, mediums, and lows, how long they're estimated to get done. Are they must do, yes or no? Sprint tasks priorities. There's a bunch of fields here, and then I can edit or add more of these. So if I'm going to keep this as is and click generate plan. And now here is a web app that has created my workday for tomorrow and the draft agenda that we just had on the previous screen. So I'm looking at the calendar, seeing where everything is laid out for tomorrow. Again, the checklist down below, which we saw before. And then I can accept the plan as is because I'm doing a review right now. I can export an ICS file, but let me first accept the plan. So tomorrow's work plan is now accepted. And I can export an ICS file, which let me see if I can share that. Share this on the screen. All right, so I brought my calendar up. I just double-clicked the ICS file that was downloaded, and it's saying, hey, do you want to import this to your calendar? And I'll say, yeah. And it imported it into tomorrow's calendar. Right, today I'm recording this on Sunday, April 26th. Tomorrow is April 27th, and it created a calendar for tomorrow, blocked off my calendar so other people can't schedule over it. But also for me, for my work tasks, I can now click on these and read, what am I supposed to be doing during this time block? And it even puts a little thing here that it was created by my daily planner. What am I supposed to be doing during this time block? Oh, great. What am I supposed to be doing here? Oh, great. These are all the descriptions that came from that app. This is version 1 of the app. I'm working on version 2. I was actually going to work on it today, but I thought I would live stream what I created so far, and then the next time we get together, we can do the rest. All starting from me asking ChatGPT a question of, hey, can you help me create an app? To it then providing me all the prompts that are needed to create an app, me copying and pasting those steps right into OpenAI's Codex. I could have done this in Claude Code, probably would have given me different but similar results, but I decided to do this in Codex since they just had a new release. And then the end result is this functioning web app here, which, as you saw, I was able to walk through it. I could edit any of these if I wanted to, and then created an ICS file that I was able to import into my calendar. Version 1. When we come back the next time, we will do version 2. So easy to do. And it really did make it very accessible. Extremely accessible for the non-developer. There's no question about it. All right. I think that might be as much time as I'm going to put in today. Here is the folder structure that was created by Codex. So it created all these files. Again, I can open up any of these in your development environment. Here's the SQLite databases that were created. Here are all the markdown files that were created. Here's a ton of node folders of stuff. You can go in here and check this out. So we can go in and look at the JavaScript that was created here. I continued to see these TSX files being a part of the creation, and TSX is a new world to me. I have no idea what that is. So yeah, if you want to code, the nice thing is you can use this to be your, I guess, baseline of development, and then you can go in and modify things. For me, what I'm doing now is that version 1 of the product, it was, to me, a really cool tech demo, but it didn't meet what I wanted for a production product. I still need to manually look at my spreadsheets and my documents and my calendar and then copy and paste stuff into that web app. Here, I'll put it on the screen while we're talking about it. Right, I still need to manually enter data into this. So it actually isn't saving me time. It was a really cool tech demo, and it created an ICS file, but I still have to manually populate the application. So V2 of this app is going to say, all right, well, how do you ingest some of my current data? Can can this application go and read my Google Sheets? Can it read my Google Doc? Can it read my Word document? Can it read my actual calendar? So I'm going to start working on that next. And I've already started on it. I have a series of prompts. I'll save it for the next time we get together. A series of prompts where I was planning out V2, and it'll be fun when I bring this up because ChatGPT and I were having, I wouldn't say an argument, but a heated conversation where I'm like, I just want V2 to work. And it's like, nope, continue on this iterative approach. Let's build a couple additional pieces to our scaffolding, and then we'll get those live before we continue to grow on it. So I'm iterating on it. So Fernie, you've been working with GitHub Copilot, liking GitHub Copilot autocomplete and code. Yeah, see, that is, I think it's really neat to watch that. And since I haven't been coding, and not that I don't want to code, I don't have the time to, right? My career took a path away from coding, yet I still love software. So how do I still work with custom software? And to me, like, wow, this new generation is pretty cool. I can start to describe what I want, and I could see at some point me saying, okay, after we get this to version 3 or 4, let's also make it mobile accessible. And so I'm trying to run it like a thoughtful product owner and not like a brute force app developer that's just trying to get this thing done in seconds. Maybe I could, but I'm being very thoughtful, like feeding it thoughtful prompts of something that I would use every day. So I think by next week, this thing could very well replace my daily manual routine, as long as I work on it only after hours, because that is also one of my own constraints. I can only do this during after hours. Fernie, to your comment that you didn't feel like it worked at all a couple months ago, I'll be honest, the team I worked with early in 2025, it was more the application security teams working with the software development team. The AppSec team were trying to use Claude Code, and they were seeing some levels of success, but it just wasn't the level that made them feel comfortable. And then as I saw more and more people really seeing Claude Code meet their needs over the past year, and it's really interesting watching how many people have fallen in love with what Anthropic has been building. And almost like ChatGPT or OpenAI is the old stuff. When I saw them drop a new version of Codex, I thought, let me try this test on Codex. By the way, I did the exact same test on Claude Code. I'm not going to confuse this today by going through what Claude Code did. Maybe we'll do that another session. But I think what's pretty amazing is, again, my $20 a month ChatGPT Pro account got me all this, and we'll see how far I can get into version 2 of the application, where it's getting a little bit more awareness and a little bit more connectivity into the other tools that are in my daily workflow. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves. I'm blown away at how well this tool created a fully functional application. Like, a couple things that stood out to me. It created it as an HTTP application. And think about it, I did not ask it to do any type of authentication. I did not ask it to put any security controls in place. So at some point, I probably want to have it do an OWASP top 10 check, scan against the top 10 OWASP items. Maybe I'll have it do a Cloud Security Alliance CSC check and look for vulnerabilities and weaknesses in the application. Because I might get this to a point where not only does it help me, but maybe I can share it with the community and other people can use it. And at that point, I want to make sure that it's locked down enough that folks know that when they put their data in it, it's protected. Right now, it's just running locally on my machine. It's not being hosted anywhere. I'm not moving any of my code to GitHub right now. And I'll come back with the V2 plan. And the V2 plan, I'll do a little bit more live versus a walkthrough what I did before. But this was cool. Thank you for joining. And I'll do another one of these again soon, because I feel like this not only helps me, but it helps our friends out in the world there. So we'll keep doing that.